Onions, Chapter 5, Ultimatums. After finishing off his third sweet roll and second glass of milk, C.W. pushed through the screen door, sauntered into the backyard, and stopped cold. Sandrin was walking 10 feet above the ground on a tightrope, holding onto a balancing pole. You were in the circus, weren't you? Sandra didn't look down. She kept focused on her path along the wire. Yep, whole family. My parents, parents, their parents. We go all the way back to the early 18th century in Europe. Sandra arrived at the other end where the tightrope ended near a big eucalyptus tree. She balanced the pole across the platform and climbed down from the tightrope rig. You like the circus? Never been. How'd you do that? Walk on that wire? Practice. She began stretching, touching her toes and swinging her arms. You've never been to the circus? No. No one ever wanted to take me. I tried to sneak into one once, but I got thrown out. Is that guy in the picture? Is he really standing on one finger? Yes. He was my uncle, the great Bando. He performed that act for 65 years. Never had one fall. How high up was he? 100 feet. Who was that guy with you standing next to you with the trumpet? Sandrin stared at C.W. Don't you know who Harry James was? Nah, I never listened to music. Well, you read classics like old Spot. That makes up for it, Sandrin said sarcastically. She headed for the house. I got work to do on my French. There's the moor, and there's the grass. C.W. was pushing the old side wheel lawnmower across the thick grass that seemed to go on forever. It was hot, over 100 degrees. He wasn't used to this kind of hard labor and wasn't having fun. As he mowed, he distracted himself by going over page by page what he'd read the night before about Felicia Hardy. He thought about Felicia's special powers that she'd received from the Kingpin. One was her bad luck power that made bad things happen to people she did not like. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, had broken up with Felicia, but they picked up their relationship again after a big battle with Sabretooth. Then they broke up again, and Felicia moved to Paris. C.W. was trying to remember exactly why they broke up when he hit a rock that got caught in the lawnmower blade. After removing the rock, he headed over to the pool for a break and a fresh drink of clear spring water. C.W. kneeled down and drank from his cupped hands. The water was like nectar from heaven. When he finished, he sat on the outcropping of rock that rimmed the shallow pool and picked up the box of Mr. Bubble. He stared at the round, happy balloon face that didn't seem to have a care in the world. And he envied Mr. Bubble. He tried to remember a time when he'd had a happy face like that. He couldn't. No. He never had a chance to settle in with any foster family. The ones that hadn't abused him were few, but even they called up bad memories. Like the family in San Bernardino. The Carvers were composed of Mr. and Mrs. Carver and their daughter, Candy. They were decent people, kind, they smiled a lot. Candy was 2 years older than C.W. She helped him with homework, and they played Monopoly together. They had a dog named Duke. Duke used to lick his face just like Bosco. The Carvers were well off, and they planned to take a trip to Disneyland together. But before that could happen, Mr. Carver had had a heart attack, was confined to his bed permanently. Everything changed. The medical bills became exorbitant, and even though they seemed to care about him, C.W. knew he'd have to go, and go he did. They all cried when the agency came to pick him up. But not C.W. He never cried. The in and out experience had occurred too often. He'd learned to steel himself against any emotion. He remembered looking back as the lady from the agency drove him away. Duke ran after the car for a whole block before he stopped and watched the car disappear. C.W. had watched him as long as he could. Then the car turned a corner, and C.W. had had to turn another corner, one with sharp edges. C.W. reached into his pocket and pulled out a joint. He had 2 left. A guy from his last school, the one in Tucson, was a dealer. C.W. had gotten half a dozen cigarettes from him before he had to move. He didn't particularly like marijuana, but smoking it made him feel like he was getting back at everybody and everything. Smoking pot was outlawed, frowned upon by teachers and social workers. It was his statement to the whole world. You hate me, I hate you. First, he took the Black Cat comic book out of his back pocket and laid it on the grass. Then he pulled out a kitchen match, scratched it on one of the rocks, and took a drag. Just then, Sandra appeared out of nowhere and smacked the joint out of his hand. Don't you ever do that here! A surprised C.W. stared at her. It's just a joint. It's garbage, she said, fanning the air. It's worse than garbage. C.W. got to his feet and looked at her petulantly. Well, if I can't smoke, I'm leaving. Bye. He started to leave, but thought better of it and came back. What's wrong with it? Everybody does it. Is that why you do it? Because everybody does it? Sandra stared at him, eyes unblinking. C.W. had the impression of 2 bullet holes in ice. Is that why you steal? She continued, her voice a machete. Because everybody steals? Good Lord, child, think for yourself. You have God-given reason. You have a mind. Use it. She started to leave and came back. The rake is by the side door. As she walked away, C.W. gave her the finger. Same to you, kid. C.W. spent the rest of the day trying to figure out how she knew what he'd done without looking back.